Well, there I am. Duel the Gamer. The Dark Souls player. Well, who'd have thought that? But how did I come to this, I hear you say? And what's with this strange opening? Well, it's not a long story. Well, maybe. Come closer, and I'll tell you. It all started a few months ago. What a day that was. It's what I call a good game. Black Myth Wukong got me into Dark Souls. How, you ask? Well, pop a squat by the fire and I'll tell you. It's probably not that exciting, but what makes it interesting is that for years, I was actually avidly against playing Dark Souls or anything like it. Sure, I heard the hype around Elden Ring, and I actually enjoyed watching people on Twitch play the game when it first came out, but I could never really imagine myself actually playing the game for one simple reason.
The graphics are dog shit. The graphics are dog shit. The graphics are dog shit.
Just kidding, that's not the reason. Okay. The real reason is I just thought it was a colossal waste of time. And by that I mean, I just didn't see the appeal of playing a game where I had to run and try to fight a boss over and over again, dying again and again.
Again and again and again and again and again and again and again until we're both dead.
But you see, I'm normally the type of the person that likes progression in my games. I like leveling up and I like feeling strong and dominating the mobs as I fought at the beginning of the game. Games like Diablo 3 or 4 or old school RuneScape, Vampire Survivors, Ark, or even 7 Days to Die. Those games have great progression, and over time when you are playing those games, you really feel a sense of accomplishment. Keep in mind, I know that you might be screaming and raising your fists in the air saying, oh, but you can't level in Dark Souls, and we'll get to that. So anyways, back to the story. So one day, I was working, as one does, and I work from home, so usually I throw something up in the background, just, as background noise. So I had a couple of my favorite streamers on, and one day I just switched up to Asmongold, one of my favorite streamers. Now, you might be a polarizing take, but hey, it is what it is, am I right, boys? Just kidding. So anyway, I had Asmon up on the screen, and I'm watching him and boot up the game, and it's called Black Myth Wukong. And I just want to preface this, but I've never heard of this game in my entire life, never seen any marketing, never saw any trailers. I didn't see anything whatsoever. I didn't even know it was a Souls-like until later on. And we'll use quotes here because it's probably not even close to a Souls-like, as the others are. But I digress. So, he's playing the game and I'm watching him and I see him fight this boss. And he just looks like this giant blue stone baby statue thing. And so, I'm watching Aspen play and he's getting beat down over and over and over again. And he just keeps booting back into the fight and trying to fight this boss again and again. And it just really caught my attention because he doesn't get mad. He doesn't rage, he doesn't scream, he doesn't curse obscenities at the screen or his audience. His audience does try to give him advice, and he didn't like that, but, who would, right? But no, he just kept on going, and I just had to sit there and go, why would somebody keep punishing themselves like this? Now, keep in mind, you're really not supposed to fight this boss at the beginning of Black Myth Wukong, but, at that time of me watching the stream, I had no idea what was going on or what the context was. And so, of course, me not knowing this at the time, I didn't consider it an issue. But, eventually I got around to playing the game myself. But, let's continue through the story. So I'm watching Asmon. He's just getting beat down again, as I mentioned, and I realized something. He's learning as he plays the game.
How is this possible? Damn it, he's learning as he fights.
I know, what a shock, right? So every time he boots back in, for the most part, he learns something new. Now, whatever he's learned didn't really give him too much of an edge, But as I kept watching him, he eventually learned enough about the mechanics of the game, like how to control your character and how to attack and dodge and things like that, because this is the beginning of the game, right? And he's learning the mechanics of the boss, and eventually he was dodging almost like he was Ultra Instinct Goku or something. And it was just a very fascinating sight to see.
I'm probably still gonna die here. I don't... Wait. I think I didn't die.
I couldn't wrap my brain around it. So this is really what got me into Black Myth Wukong. And so I sat there thinking, well, damn, now I want to go and try to fight that boss and see if I can beat it. Because, you know, eventually Asmongold does beat the boss, and he wins, he succeeds. And out of all the hours I've watched other streamers play games like Elden Ring, you know, Penguin Zero or Asmongold or any other big streamers, they're playing Elden Ring, because I definitely sat down and I watched people play Elden Ring for hours. And I never once considered myself one of those players that like, yep, that's going to be me. I'm going to be able to go in there and play Elden Ring and beat that boss just like them. The thought just never really occurred to me. And for some reason, when I was watching them play other games, other Dark Souls likes like Lies of P and similar games of that nature at the time, I just assumed I would never be as good to play these types of games. And so it just never crossed my mind until that day. The other thing I started to slowly realize being on Twitter is that this game was selling like hotcakes. Like, it was just doing insane numbers, just crazy numbers. And I was just like, well, there must be something about this game if it's doing so well. And what draws that amount of people to play a game that's a Souls-like, right? And that's when I really started to learn that it really was a Souls-like type of game, but it still confused me, perplexed me a little bit. But this didn't discourage me. I really liked the graphics of the game, the combat, and eventually learning that it's not just about it being a Souls-like, it's about the story of Journey to the West. Now, you may not know this about me, but I'm actually a huge anime fan. I love animes. I like One Piece. Of course, you already know by now I love Dragon Ball. And so because of this, the game's story or journey really intrigued me. And if you didn't know, Goku and Luffy's characters, well, I guess Goku more so than Luffy, are very loosely based off the story of Journey to the West. At the time, I had planned to go on a trip to see my brother, and this was right as the game was coming out. So, you know, I saw the stream of Asmongold, planned for my trip to go see my brother, traveled to go see my brother, and I went to go see him. And, my brother was just waking up, and I was like, well, I guess I'll throw Asmongold up playing Black Myth Wukong again, because I was like, oh, I want to watch more of that. That was really fun to watch. And so I'm watching it. Eventually, his buddy comes over, later in the day. I'm still watching it. He starts watching it with me, and he's like, what is this game? This game looks really cool. And so then my brother comes out, and he starts watching it, and now all of a sudden, all three of us are watching Asmongold try to fight these bosses on Black Myth Wukong, and it was just a really fascinating moment in time, because we were all three of us, mind you, all three of us are not Souls players either. None of us have really played Souls games. I think my buddy did play a little bit of Elden Ring, but he's not played the original Dark Souls entries either. So I would consider, us three pretty much not Souls players at all, at the very least. So at the end of the trip, or close to the end of the trip, I guess I should say, my brother ends up buying the game on Steam, loading it, and we eventually sit together and we watch him try to play through the intro. And this was enough for me to get back from my trip, go home, buy the game, install it on my PC, and start playing it for myself. And as I am doing these things, I was actually a little concerned, because those initial thoughts that I talked about earlier in the video, where I didn't have the confidence to play a game like this that's a Souls-like, I was like, man, there's a high chance that I'll get stuck on like 3 or 4 bosses and I'll just quit playing the game. Like, I was actually afraid. I didn't want to pay for a game, pay full price, which at the time is $60, and get stuck on a boss and then stop playing and give up, essentially. I didn't want that to happen. But I put those thoughts aside and I said, nope, I'm going to try to do my best to beat every single boss that I possibly can. If Asmongold can do it, how hard can this game be, right? And again, I don't know why, but these thoughts never occurred to me in the past. But I guess for some reason, just for watching Asmon grow and get better as a player and learn the boss mechanics just really inspired me to give it the old college try. So, I followed in the same steps as Asmongold. I did the exact same thing he did. I started the game, and I ended up going to fight, and my brother and I call it the big baby. The baby. So I went and fought the big baby. And boy, did I get whooped. I got whooped over and over again. I definitely got frustrated a few times, and I remember trying to fight him for a couple hours, but as I was playing, the same thing that was happening to Asmon was happening to me.
How is this possible? Damn it, he's learning as he fights!
And I couldn't believe it. This was a game changer to me. This was a very eye-opening moment for me. I could do this. I could beat this boss. So eventually, I did, and I kept going. And I played through the entire game. I beat the game. I think I landed on like 80 hours of the game, and this game, you know, is just, it's amazing. And now this is not a Black Myth Wukong review, so I'm not going to review the entire game. But I just went through the entire game, mostly blind. I didn't really YouTube any of the fights initially. I loved all the different bosses because, you know, all these bosses had their own style, their own attack patterns they had to learn through. Some bosses were easier than others, and some bosses I spent hours trying to beat, and I just could not beat it for the life of me until I remembered the attack pattern to a T. So there is something to be said about learning the boss mechanics, getting your ass handed to you over and over and over again until eventually you just start to understand when the boss is going to attack, how fast, how often, what moves, how many times he's going to swing. And there's something so satisfying about that feeling. So I think I finally get it.
The graphics are dog shit.
And then the other thing that I learned is that you level up in Black Myth Wukong. I didn't know this at the time, so I just assumed you ran in and you just learned the bosses and that's it. But no, you actually level up. And so, once again, I beat the game, put 80 hours in, loved the game. I even put in a full Steam review, which I never do. I don't know anybody that does that, but I did that. I did that for Black Myth Wukong because I felt like it was worth mentioning. Let me just say, if you haven't played the game, there is a boss in one of the chapters that, and I think they actually patched him at the recording of this video. He is just has a terrible hitbox and is just completely awful. But anyway, I want to go. I don't want to go off on a tangent here. But I did do the finals. Is I did do the true ending. I beat all the secret bosses, and I did it right. So I was very accomplished. I felt very proud of myself. And so after I beat Black Myth Wukong, I was wondering, like, man, how do I play more of this? There's more games like this, right? And so after I realized, or I learned rather, is that the game was based off of Dark Souls. And so I was like, Dark Souls. Never played the original titles, as I mentioned. And I was like, man, there's got to be other titles. And so some of the titles that I learned about were like, you know, Sekiro, Neo 2, Lies of P. And I think it's a Crab's Treasure is very similar to Dark Souls. And really what I wanted to do, instead of jumping into those similar games, I was like, well, I should just go back to the source. So that's what I did. It led me to Demon Souls. So, of course, I don't have Demon Souls. I don't have the OG game. And I think I could get the remake. I do own a PS5. But I decided I would rather just play Dark Souls 1. And that's what I did. And at the recording of this video, I can proudly say, I beat Dark Souls 1. And I think I put in about 100 hours into the game. And let me just say this. It was hard as fuck. It was way harder than definitely Black Myth Wukong. But I will say, the punishing that I got in Black Myth Wukong kind of softened me a little bit to Dark Souls 1. So I knew that going into Dark Souls 1, I'd be a lot harder and get destroyed. But I absolutely fell in love with it. And it just blew my mind. And I wanted more of it. So I did beat Dark Souls 1, like I mentioned. And as of recording of this video, I am currently playing through Dark Souls 2, which is an eyebrow raiser for sure. But now I want to go through Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, I want to get Bloodborne, I want to play Demon Souls, I want to play Lies of P, I want to play through all of them. I want to beat all of them. And wait, including the holy grail that is Elden Ring. And play the DLCs and do all the content and wait for From Software's next game. And play that game and beat it. And I'm very interested when I get to that point, because I've got a long way to go before I can get to that. I'm very curious what From Software is going to come out with next. Is it going to be Sekiro 2? Is it going to be Bloodborne 2? Is it going to be... It's probably not going to be more Elden Ring since they just released that DLC. Is it going to be Dark Souls 5? Like, what are they going to do? So, anyway, I'm very excited, but my current plan is to play as much of these games until the Diablo 4 expansion comes out, take a break, and then come back and continue through that journey as I previously mentioned. But, you know, once I'm done with that Diablo 4 X-Pack, it's back to Soulsing, baby. Yeah, I said it. Anyways, the moral of the story is this. If you're watching this video and you've made it this far in the video, thank you by the way, and you had no interest in Souls titles before Wukong came out, I just want you to know that I am fully invested into these games. And if you're wondering to yourself, can I get into Black Myth Wukong or Dark Souls? The answer is yes. Yes, you can, and yes, you should.